on air. Okay. Hello, welcome everybody. We're here at the IDFA DocLab. It's the 15th year of the DocLab, and we're going to be having a conversation here with a couple of creators from Polymorf. So Marcel and Mark, maybe you can each introduce yourself and tell me a bit about what you do in the realm of immersive media.
You start, Mark?
Do you start?
No, I'll start. Hi, I'm Marcel van Brakel. I'm founder of Polymorf. I started off as a filmmaker and then moved into theater and then moved into immersive art and interactive art. And with Polymorf, we're a small design collective studio based in Holland. And we create immersive experience, of course, of all kinds. Sometimes it's more performative, sometimes it's more involving other media. Every project is different, but it's mostly evolving around the senses and the body, the human body. That's kind of central to a project and work. And Mark is my lead designer, artistic team, whatever.
Partner in crime. Yeah,
partner in crime.
Mark Meeuwenoord. I've been working with Marcel within Polymorf since I think 2014 or something. And I have a background in philosophy and not super active, I have to say, but I studied it, and music. And in Polymorf, I'm doing a lot of sound design stuff, music composition, and I also work with music and sound and robotics. And that's the general scope of what I do.
Yeah, I know that the DocLab is featuring a lot of these different types of documentary projects that are trying to go above and beyond just the initial 2D media or just different structures of storytelling. And so maybe you could tell me a bit about your deviation from just using film into these other media, including smell. So maybe you could just give me a bit more context for some of the other projects that you may have had here at DocLab.
So yeah, well, I think actually our first project was kind of moving away from the eyes. We designed Famous Death, and it was part of a research project, a longer research project we did on the sense of smell and how we can incorporate that into media design and into interaction design. And for that, we created a smell printer and some kind of more freezing cell in which the audience could be shoved in and they would stay there in the dark. And with only smell and sound, we could kind of recreate the death of a famous person until the moment that you die. And you actually kind of consider it some kind of an analog VR system because you're put in a first-person position, re-living the person's life. And we kind of discovered that our sense of smell is so much overlooked in media design. It's not there, but it's so powerful because it's kind of connecting with the deepest or your oldest part in your brain. And that makes it very powerful to kind of as an interactive tool to kind of manipulate your audience, but also your feelings and connect to memories. So that's where it all started, I think. And after that, we did a lot of different experiments with the body in different modalities because we got so excited about this. These realms that are mostly overlooked if you stay only on the visual level. And actually, I think now with our latest project here at IDFA Symbiosis, we moved back to the visual again within the VR. But the previous project we did on IDFA were mostly targeting different senses than vision.
Yeah, I had a chance to see some photos, read some interviews, and it looked like you were choosing a number of different famous celebrities who had died, like Whitney Houston or JFK or Gaddafi, and you would, the audience members would actually get onto a little slab and go into like a morgue-like refrigerator as they're laying down, as if they were dead. But while they were in there, they were getting all these smells. So what were the contexts for onboarding people into this experience? I mean, were they told that this is going to be the death of Whitney Houston or Gaddafi or JFK, or like how did you communicate to them what they were about to experience in terms of going into this like morgue-like refrigerator to be able to smell these things? So yeah, just curious to hear how that was all communicated.
I think a lot of the communication was done by, or still is actually, but by the visual impact the freezers make. You know, you have this iconic image of a death container, basically, which suddenly is in like an art space kind of situation. And then, of course, you will be asked, or you will be told that you were going to experience the last moments of this person's life, laying down in the dark, getting a different sense, and an audio design to accompany that. And people just undergo it, and they are immersed in it. And one of the biggest, I think, one really helpful aspect or impactful aspect is that you're gonna lie down. You know, people are being put on this tray, and that aspect is a step in giving in or giving over to this experience. Because of course, when you're standing up, we're used to standing up or sitting down at tables. You have this bodily thing that you're used to or something, and when you lay down, that changes. You know, you are getting, I think, more vulnerable or more perceptive, but at least in a different, literally the different state, different bodily state. So and then people get out, and then the door opens and the tray gets pulled out like abruptly, and you're back in the space again. And that's really where people need to have this little conversation about what just happened to them. And that's,
so a lot of okay. No, I want to say that, so a lot of the onboarding was also not done by us, but by the audience themselves, who started to talking and share experiences. And I think also one of the key elements of the design is that you had not one story, but you had like parallel stories. So you had like 3 or 4 stories to choose from. So people also had a different experience to share. And people also a bit afraid to get in. So it was not always, maybe you had to overcome a certain barrier to step into this situation of total surrender to the system. And to maybe being confronted with the claustrophobia of the space, because it's a very tiny space.
Yeah, I know that there's a piece a number of years ago at Sundance by Marshmallow Laserfuse called Sweet Dreams, and as the experience, you're in this virtual environment, but you're eating these different flavors of candies. And then Cosmos Within Us was another piece that actually had smell docents, were these little sticks that they would have somebody who would put something right up to your nose while you're in a virtual experience, because it's really hard to edit smell, because once it's diffused, you can't take it away. So they would have the diffused sticks that they hold in front of your nose. But what I noticed with each of these experiences is that a lot of times the sense of smell is very subtle, that the visual field can dominate. And, you know, it sounds like this experience, you're really focusing complete attention on the smell and not even having other sensory stimulation. I don't know if you had sound or other senses that are playing a part, but really trying to focus on one sense, I think, is interesting, because a lot of times the smell or taste is something that is below our conscious perception. It's something that's kind of subtly influencing us in ways that we couldn't even necessarily articulate with words. But I feel like there's something about the flashbulb memories that we get with smell that really take us to deep visceral memories of our past if we have associations with the smell. So if we don't, then it's going to create a whole other visceral experience that probably people will remember this experience that you created based upon if they smell it again. So I'm curious to hear your own take on, you know, what's it mean to really focus on just the smell and what type of experiences you were able to create by doing that.
I think I'm not sure if we make work that only focuses on smell as an isolated thing. I think if that's what you're asking, I'm not sure, but I think it's always a part of a complete body, but it's about. So yesterday we were in this conversation and Marcel was talking. So we constantly hear each other say things, and we're like, oh wow, that's interesting. He was saying and he was explaining in this conversation we had yesterday how as a director you can focus direction, you focus attention, and play with that. So I think in a lot of these works where we use smell and scent, it's a sort of a compass or a light to focus like story direction, and you can follow that direction. But it's also always a question. So how will this work? How will this work in this confined space? How will this work in a complete so now in Symbiosis, of course, we also use scent, and how it works differently because it's in a different design context, in a different story world. I think it's about that, about exploring for us, at least for me, exploring the way we can use these different senses in conveying stories to an audience. But that's not an answer, I think, to your question.
Well, and I'm curious what it sounds like you have another experience here called Symbiosis. Maybe you could give a little bit more context as for what that project is trying to do.
Yeah, so in the current project, it's a multi-user VR project where 3 users at the same time are interconnected in the same VR world, and they are turned in a new bodily architecture, so a non-human bodily architecture, and that is fitting the VR model, which is obviously also not human. But the combination of human and animal DNA, or human and other plant-like DNA, or other critters. And the objective of the project is to kind of do a kind of thought experiment. Sorry. Excuse me for this. I have to put these off, but okay. Okay, so it was. So the objective is to have a future speculation on what might happen if we leave the human-centered position, where everything is about us and about our power, our human agency, and it's serving the human goals. And what happens if we leave that and move towards a more symbiotic relationship with nature or other living creatures? And within the different stories that we present, there are different answers to that question. And but one of the main strategies to put you in a non-human body position, and with that is a scent design that helps you to get immersed in this different world, and also in this different way of, that these critters perceive the world, because it's maybe different than ours. Yeah. So it's always in combination with visual, and with Famous Death, it was like a conscious choice to not do that, and to have to more tap into the storytelling ability of the user himself, because the smells will trigger personal episodes, and with that the story of being Whitney Houston becomes multi-layered. It also has the images that are already present in your brain, and we kind of tip them and put them on, switch them on with the scent and with the sound, of course, to get you to have a very intimate and very personal media experience in a way. So that's a bit different strategy than we do now in the current setup.
Yeah, and because this is the 15th anniversary for the IDFA DocLab, I'm curious to hear a little bit of reflections of what you see the DocLab is able to do in terms of the wider documentary community, and how it's provided maybe an outlet for your work to be able to kind of push the edge for was even possible, and what the role of the DocLab has been for you.
Well, it's been first of all, maybe I think a friendly home or something, a community where you feel really connected to other makers, other people that are in this same unsecure field of trying to tell stories in a different way than traditionally. And I've been also not only with Polymorf, but also, for example, with things like Duo Disco and Distance Disco involved in certain more social event kind of things in this community, which really feels good. And I think also for us as Polymorf, it was really an igniter since Famous Death, because that was actually the first work as a group we presented there, and it really helped us lift off or something with this project as a sort of a first step into a bigger realm of connecting to other places, other festivals, and now it's, I don't know, I think it's been really important as a platform, or as a lab, or as whatever name you can give it a lot of names, I think. But for me personally, most foremost is the connection with other makers, and the in-depth talks you can have about your work, but also about your insecurities about your work, and how to get them to a broader audience. And that's a very special thing. I think that's very special.
I cannot agree more with Mark. And what I also think that DocLab really acknowledged that some of these things are really are experiment, and they can fail, and they give you also a lot of trust to fail. Of course, they want to have successful show, but I think they are really supportive also to give you to help you out, and to believe in the dream that you're having. And for us, being at DocLab opened up the whole thing. I mean, it really kickstarted everything that happened after that. So and we're so happy that we can return on a regular basis also to DocLab. So it's not like this one-off thing, but we building a relationship with each other. And I think that's very valuable. And there's so much smart people out there, so much to learn. That's always awesome to get connected to that and to stay connected to that.
Yeah, love to hear some reflections on, the fact that, usually when you're creating a piece of media, you want to have everything sometimes contained completely within that media for what you were trying to say. And when I think about smell and what you were able to do with your previous projects, is sometimes leaning into the fact that the smell is going to bring up memories and experiences of the audience, and how that is going to be like this unknown blob of memories that you're tapping into and then fusing it into your work. So it's not just, I mean, I guess that's always happening in terms of when we're watching any media, but I feel like there's much more deeper visceral experiences with that when it comes to senses like smell, or other ways that you're fusing all these different things together. But there's this aspect of really leaning into the audience's experiences and how you're going to be somehow tapping into something and then blending it in to what you're doing. And I'd be very curious to hear some of your reflections on what you learned from being able to do that, and trying to maybe in some ways take a step back from having complete control over what it is that you're trying to say, and really lean into whatever experiences may come up within the audience.
Yeah, I think the brain is a prediction machine. It tries to predict the future, and in storytelling, you want to make use of that ability of the brain, that it's always trying to make sense out of all of the data that it's getting. And I think what we learned is that to take that even more seriously than we did before. I think since the beginning we kind of acknowledged that when you make a media experience, it's always a dialogue with the audience. That it's also partly out of control. But I think since we get more and more interested also in non-human storytelling or non-human perspective or different perspective, and also to give some freedom for the audience to create their own sense making in a sometimes also surprisingly new way, because we stimulate the body in a different manner than you ever have experienced. That's for us, it's very rewarding and very interesting, because it mirrors back these experiences of the audience. It's also giving us surprising new insights and surprisingly new feedback, and I always like that there's an element of surprise also for us as a designer, so the audience doesn't follow just the path that we kind of designed, but there's also freedom to kind of distort that, or find other paths, or find new perspectives we didn't anticipate. And to get back to Famous Death, that's one of the things that people kind of mentioned when they did the experience, that they thought like during the experience, they thought that we would manipulate also the temperature of the installation. But of course, that was not the case. But it was the effect of the hormonal ability of smell to kind of trigger flight or fight emotion settings in your body and in your brain. So people would feel heated at certain moment when we put on a fire smell, and that kind of made me realize that we're so on a subconscious level so subtly so smart actually in sense making, that we should. It's really cool to kind of also that the story is kind of enriched with different interpretations and different meaning for mirrored back by the audience. I don't know if I'm very.
Mark, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that.
Sorry?
I don't know if you have anything else that you wanted to add.
I'm listening, and I don't know. I was kind of wandering off. I'm sorry.
Just the question of any lessons learned that you had from kind of as you're designing experiences like this. Any other takeaways?
Yeah, I was when I was wandering off, and I was trying to reconnect with the question and think, I was thinking about these technologies. We as the same, I think, as we try to in different projects. Famous Devs is of course not the only one, but try to discover and explore scent, or discover and explore touch as a medium of conveying stories. We constantly develop these technologies ourselves. So we use these things that are there and try to construct new things with them. And it can be like a scent printer, of either a thing that talks back to you, or a thing that makes you feel heat and cold. And now in our latest project, we all put that together. We developed a lot of this whole
software
system
robotics.
Soft robotics, which so one of the takeaways. So you have this concept. Okay, soft robotics. That's cool. Let's do something with that. It's not like that, of course, but it's also like that. And then you start exploring that and making that stuff, and then it's super tiny, and then in the process you discover that it needs to be bigger and different, and it changes completely. So during this process of developing these technologies, and now we have this enormous array of big cylinders that actually produce control the haptics in the suits, and then looking back to soft robotic development in a lab, it's like these tiny little silicon things, you know, and we made like these huge things. So this is a completely different outcome. So for me, the big takeaway in that process is that you have to move along with your insights and your things and your failures to actually get to a point that you can say this works in the design, this helps the story, or this maybe needs to be improved still, but is an interesting new direction and a new, maybe even an aesthetic layer or a story layer that is added through this process of letting go your original ideas. Me personally, I find it very hard some way, but it's like a super lesson for me constantly. And this environment of doing that, this not only working with Marcel and the team, but also in DocLab, that helps me making those steps or some way. I don't know. That's for me one of the biggest takeaways of these processes.
Okay, yeah, and just as we start to wrap up here, I'm curious for each of you what you think the ultimate potential of these new forms of immersive storytelling might able to enable.
Yeah.
You start, or is that us?
Yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, it's, there's a lot of things. I think
Yeah.
since we get interactive with all these kind of digital media and robotics and hardware, we kind of also realize we're something different than that, and maybe that also needs different kind of stimuli in the future. So I'm really excited about this merging of the body with kind of organic hardware, like this wetware computing and this biological robotics that's starting to emerge now in the labs. And I think that will the mergent of the artificial with the real. It's already going on, but it will be more and more invasive into the future because it will become the same thing. And I'm really excited about that. And yeah, for us also playing around with the bodies and with the perceptual models of the body, it's very interesting to kind of rethink what it means to be a human and a sense, because the sensory apparatus that we have is just there by chance, and it has a certain modality, and at the same time that's very determining the way that we perceive reality and how we build models of it and how we understand it and how we can philosophize about it or think about it. And I think by putting the body into a situation where it's out of control or out of these known modalities, it also opens up new spaces for new ways of new perspectives and new ways of thinking about reality and the body and how these things work. And I'm really excited about that. Yeah, that would be my question, I think, answer. Yeah.
Wow, how to top that? No, yeah. So for me, I think to add on that maybe is these all these possibilities and all these new technologies that are emerging, but not only emerging, but like are getting accessible. They have, of course, their histories, and we should be aware of those histories. I think there are not only possibilities to unfold ourselves in the new, but also there are also traps to keep us in the old or something. So I think that's an important thing you should realize. And what we I think do is constantly, especially when there are these new things, new technologies, these unknown territories, we try to mirror or use it as mirrors to say something or understand something or to feel something about ourselves. And that's a constant thing we're in, or something like a constant wrestling match or something as a human. So I'm at the one hand, I'm super positive about this. I'm really excited about it. At the other hand, I think it's same old what we do when new things are appearing, like when the train appeared. I find this story very interesting, that the train sickness appeared too. People got sick, and it was a medical discourse that started writing about this thing, and then it eventually went away again. So it's this constant push and pull of things. And I'm trying to cite like a little line of text from Marcel's script, a push of pull of things that we're in, I think, and in these times, and maybe in all the times. But okay, but there's certainly positive things to grasp on, and for like changing ourselves. And to end, I think it's impossible to not change.
Great. Well, Mark and Marcel, is there anything else that's left unsaid that you'd like to say to the broader DocLab community?
Yeah, keep it up, and I really hope keep seeing you guys in like different phases and different maybe in a couple of years, maybe next year, but in this I'm super happy to be part of this community, and proud, and see you around. Hopefully for drinks and the social stuff, not only the online stuff, of course.
Yeah, we want more drinks and in the flesh. Yeah.
All right. Well, Mark and Marcel, thanks so much for dropping by and giving a little bit more context as to your own work, and to think about where DocLab is at now and where it may be going in the future. So thanks for joining today.
Thank you so much, Kent. Bye bye.
Thank you, Kent. And thank you all. Bye bye.
Yeah. Ciao.
Ciao.